She left her husband and their newborn twins behind, convinced they were a burden. But 18 years later, the daughters she abandoned would unknowingly become her bosses and billionaires. This is not just a story about struggle. It's about a single father who refused to give up, two girls who rose from poverty with unshakable character, and a twist that life itself couldn't script better. In today's inspiring real-life-like story, you'll witness betrayal, sacrifice, unimaginable determination, and the kind of redemption money can't buy. NIF. You've ever wondered how far love, honesty, and grit can take someone? This story will not only answer that, it'll stay with you long after the screen fades to black. And watch till the end. One moment will make you cry, another might make you cheer. No one ever imagines their forever love turning into a final goodbye, especially not like this. The cries of two newborns pierced the silence of a dimly lit room. On the small, worn-out bed, two baby girls thrashed their tiny limbs, their faces red from non-stop sobbing. But the woman standing over them, their mother, showed no sign of warmth or worry. Her movements were sharp, angry, methodical. With every swipe, she stuffed clothes into a weathered travel bag as though she were escaping prison. Peter, her husband, stood nearby, watching helplessly. He held one of the baby's socks in his trembling fingers, as if hoping the smallest gesture could stop what was coming. His voice was soft, pleading. "Linda, the babies, they need you." But she didn't even look at him. Her face was set, like stone. "I'm done, Peter. They're no longer my concern." That single sentence cracked something inside him, not for himself, but for the girls. Mary and Naomi were only 3 months old, innocent, helpless, blameless. He took a cautious step forward. "Please, if not for me, then for them. God gave us these children." Linda spun around, fire in her eyes. "I didn't marry you to live like this. Look at this house. Look at our life. Since you lost that job, everything's gone downhill." She zipped the bag closed in one violent pull. "Do what you want with them," she hissed. "I don't care." And then, twisting the dagger even deeper, she added with chilling finality, "To be honest, I don't even care if they live or die." The door slammed behind her with a thunder that seemed to echo forever, and just like that, she was gone. For a few seconds, silence returned, almost cruelly. The babies cried on. The old clock ticked. Peter stood frozen, a man who just lost more than his wife. He lost a piece of himself. Only weeks ago, they were a family. Struggling, yes, but together. When Peter had a job at the printing firm, Linda was still kind. She used to hum while cooking, kiss the babies' cheeks. But when he got laid off due to company downsizing, everything changed. She started complaining about everything: the rice without stew, the small room they moved into, the sound of the fan. And Peter, he begged. Not because he was weak, but because he was holding on to something deeper than pride. He begged for his daughters, for a family, for a future. But love wasn't enough for Linda. Peter stepped forward and picked up Mary, then Naomi. They were still wailing, their faces red and wet. He held them close, rocking gently. "Shh, Daddy's here." As they slowly quieted, something shifted inside him. Grief didn't leave, but purpose took root. "I may not have riches to give you," he whispered to them, his voice firm now, "but I swear on my life I will give you everything I've got. I will be the best father this world has ever seen." Outside, the world moved on. People cooked dinner, laughed, argued. But inside that one-room apartment, something powerful was born. Not in comfort, but in sacrifice. Peter didn't sleep much that night. He watched the girls as they finally drifted off, their tiny chests rising and falling. He wrapped a thin blanket around them. Then he sat near the window, thinking. Tomorrow would come, and when it did, it wouldn't bring food or help or money. But it would bring purpose. He would find a way. He had to. Because now, he was all they had. The next morning arrived with the sting of hunger and the weight of reality. There was no food, no milk, no money. Just two tiny girls crying for something Peter couldn't give. Yet, he didn't allow himself time to despair. Despair was a luxury for those with options. He had none. With trembling hands, he wrapped both girls to his chest using a long, faded piece of cloth, one on the front, one on the back. Their small heads rested against his shoulders. Then, with nothing but hope and urgency, he stepped out into the world. Peter headed to the market and rented an old wheelbarrow with the last bit of change he had. It creaked and wobbled, just like his spirit, but it moved. He pushed heavy sacks for strangers, fetched goods from one end of the market to another, and bent his back for every coin. Some people stopped and stared. A few looked on with pity, others with judgment. But Peter ignored them all. He wasn't trying to impress anyone, he was fighting to survive. A kind old woman paused beside him, her eyes filled with concern. She reached into her purse and pressed a worn bill into his palm. "For the babies," she whispered. Peter's eyes welled up. He bowed slightly. "Thank you, Ma." But not everyone offered kindness. As he passed by one vendor, a loud voice pierced through the air. "Enjoyment master, when you were enjoying in bed, did you think of responsibility? Now you suffer alone." Laughter erupted around her stall. The words stung, but Peter said nothing. His silence was not weakness. It was strength reserved for something greater than arguments. As the sun set, casting golden hues across the crowded market, Peter trudged home. Every muscle ached, sweat soaked his clothes. But there was a light in his eyes. He had made just enough. That evening, he stopped by a nearby pharmacy. He explained his situation to the pharmacist, how his wife had left, how he had no help, how he needed to feed 2 infants. The pharmacist, moved by his story, helped him choose basic essentials: powdered milk, infant paracetamol, wipes. Peter paid with the day's earnings and left with a bag that felt heavier with hope than weight. Back home, he fed the twins with trembling hands. They drank hungrily. Then he bathed them using a bowl of warm water and tucked them in. No one saw what he did, no applause, no cameras. But in that tiny home, a quiet kind of hero was being born. Days turned into weeks. Peter repeated the routine: tie the babies, push the wheelbarrow, work until his legs gave out. He did it in the sun, in the rain, in exhaustion. There were no off days for single fathers. And yet, he never complained. One Monday morning, as Peter strapped the twins in place, an old voice called out behind him. "Peter, let me take the babies today." It was Mama Caro, the elderly neighbor who lived 2 doors down. Peter hesitated. "I want to help," she said gently. "The sun is too hot for these little ones. You need rest, and they need shade. I'll care for them like they're mine." Something in her voice, kind, maternal, melted his hesitation. He handed the girls over and went to work alone for the first time in weeks. That evening, he returned to find Mary and Naomi giggling in Mama Caro's arms. They looked peaceful, safe, loved. Peter smiled, a deep, thankful smile. "Thank you, Mama." From that day on, she became their guardian angel. Whenever Peter needed to work, she was there, feeding, bathing, loving. Mary and Naomi grew up knowing 2 people, their strong father and Mama Caro, the woman they would one day call Mama. Peter worked even harder, this time with a little less weight on his back and a little more peace in his heart. He couldn't give them wealth, but he gave them something far more valuable: security, love, stability. And though no one could see it then, those quiet sacrifices were building a legacy. Time, as it always does, moved forward. And with each passing year, the little girls Peter once rocked to sleep grew into 2 brilliant young women, Mary and Naomi. They didn't have toys, designer clothes, or weekend outings like other kids, but what they had was far more powerful: a father who believed in them, and a small but safe world built on love, discipline, and sacrifice. Every morning, before the sun rose, Peter would prepare them for school. He washed their uniforms by hand, polished their secondhand shoes until they shined like new, and packed small lunch bags with whatever he could afford. Even when money was tight, school fees were paid, sometimes late, sometimes in bits, but always paid. Peter would skip meals to save money, walk long distances instead of taking transport, all so his daughters could sit in a classroom. Mary and Naomi didn't take this lightly. They worked twice as hard as anyone in their class. They knew what was on the line. When classmates made fun of their old books or faded uniforms, they stayed quiet. They weren't at school to impress. They were there to build a future. By the time they reached secondary school, it became clear these girls were special, top of their class, kind to everyone, humble despite their brilliance. Teachers adored them, students respected them. Peter watched from the sidelines, never missing a parent-teacher meeting, even if he had to leave his wheelbarrow at the edge of the school gate, embarrassed but proud. Then came the exams that would change everything. WAEC and JAM. The girls studied day and night. Peter would often wake up at 2 a.m. to check on them, only to find them still buried in textbooks, whispering formulas and reviewing practice questions. When the results came out, Peter nearly collapsed with joy. Mary scored 325, Naomi scored 341. Both girls had gained admission to study medicine and surgery at one of the best universities in the country. That afternoon, they came running home, waving the printed slips, bursting with joy. "Daddy, we did it!" Peter beamed. "My daughters, you've done well. I can now walk through this city with my shoulders high. My daughters are going to be doctors." He puffed his chest out and strutted across the room in a mock walk of pride. They all laughed, their small home vibrating with joy. But when night came and the girls were asleep, Peter sat alone on the edge of his bed. The excitement faded. Reality returned like a cold wind. He had no money, not even enough to send one of them to school, let alone two. "All these years of work, and I still can't give them what they've earned," he whispered, his hands clenched tightly in his lap. He tried to fight the tears, but they came anyway. The next morning, long before dawn, Peter rose. But he didn't pick up his wheelbarrow. This battle was different. He needed more than muscles and sweat. He needed a miracle. One by one, he went from house to house, the wealthy men in his area. He knelt, he begged. He offered to wash their clothes, clean their compounds, cook their meals. Anything, just so his daughters could go to school. Most of them turned him away with cold indifference. One man, still in pajamas, listened for a moment and then shook his head. "Do you know what it costs to train a medical student? That's not my burden." After 6 rejections, Peter returned home, empty-handed, exhausted, broken. For 2 days, he barely spoke. But then, he gathered his courage and called the girls into the room. "My daughters," he said softly, "I'm sorry, I've failed you. I made a promise when you were babies that I'd send you to the ends of the earth to study, but now I can't even send you to the next town." His voice cracked. He looked away to hide his tears. But Naomi walked over and held his hand. "Daddy, there's nothing to forgive. We know how much you love us." Mary joined her. "Whether we go to school or not, you're still our hero." They embraced him tightly, the kind of hug that says more than words ever could. That night, when the world was quiet again, Peter knelt beside his bed. "God, you see everything. I have nothing, but you have everything. Please, help me help them." In the next room, the girls heard every word. They didn't sleep, they wept. But the next morning, with quiet determination, they made a decision. They would defer their admission, for now. Not out of defeat, but to fight. They could have walked away with the money, no one would have known. But character isn't what you show when people are watching. It's who you are when no one's around. It had been just another long day at the small restaurant. Mary wiped down the final table while Naomi counted what little cash they'd earned. The sun was setting, casting golden light through the dusty glass door. And that's when Mary noticed it. Under one of the chairs, pushed far into the corner, was a black briefcase. "Naomi," she called, "did one of the customers forget something?" Naomi walked over. They picked up the case together. It felt heavy, serious, locked tight. They exchanged nervous glances. Curiosity, quiet but burning, took hold. They hesitated, then slowly opened it. Inside were neat stacks of US dollars, a thick folder of documents with gold seals, and a business card that read, "Prince Tony Adebayo, Chairman, the Adebayo Group." For a full minute, the room was silent. "This guy must be important," Naomi whispered. Mary nodded. "And he's going to come back. There's no way you forget something like this." They took the briefcase home that night. When Mr. Peter saw it, his eyes narrowed, then softened as he listened to what had happened. "You did the right thing bringing it home," he said calmly. "And you'll do the right thing again tomorrow. I raised you girls to protect your name before chasing riches." The next morning, the girls returned to the restaurant early. And just as expected, a sleek black car was parked outside. A man in a perfectly tailored suit paced anxiously, phone to his ear. When Mary stepped out holding the briefcase, his head snapped up. "Yes! That's it!" he exclaimed, rushing forward. They handed it over. He opened it briefly, checked the contents, then looked up. "Thank you," he said simply, and without another word, got back in his car and drove off. Naomi blinked. "Wait, that's it? Not even one of those dollars?" Mary laughed. "So now you want dollars?" Naomi chuckled. "Call me Lady Dollars from now on." They laughed it off and got to work. Another day, another shift. But the story didn't end there. Around noon, the same car pulled up again. This time, slower, more deliberate. The door opened, and the man stepped out, smiling. "I'm Prince Tony," he said warmly. "You two, you did something most people wouldn't. You returned this briefcase even though no one was watching. That tells me everything I need to know." Mary and Naomi stood in stunned silence. "For your honesty, I want to reward you, not with money, but with opportunity." He gestured toward his car. "Come, there's something I want to show you." They hesitated, then followed. Minutes later, they stood in front of a large, newly finished building just a few blocks from the market. "This," he said, unlocking the front door, "is yours. Your restaurant will move here, fully furnished, fully equipped, fully yours." The girls gasped. Naomi covered her mouth. Mary's knees nearly gave out. Tears welled in their eyes. "Why?" Mary whispered. "Because the world needs more people like you," he answered. "And I believe in rewarding good hearts." They thanked him over and over, unable to contain their joy. The first person they ran to was their father. He was at the market, drinking a cup of kunu under the shade, resting his tired arms. When they reached him, they didn't say a word, they just hugged him. People stared, confused. What were two elegantly dressed young women doing hugging a tired man with a wheelbarrow? Peter looked between them. "What is it?" he asked, laughing nervously. They smiled. "Come with us, Daddy." When they reached the new restaurant, Naomi held his hand tightly and whispered, "It's ours." Peter stood frozen. "What do you mean?" Mary's eyes sparkled. "A man came back and gave us this place. Because we returned his briefcase. Because we were honest." Peter sat down slowly on the step in front of the building. Then he wept. Not from pain, but from pride. All those days under the sun, all those years pushing a wheelbarrow, all those nights praying while his daughters slept. It hadn't been in vain. That evening at home, Mary and Naomi sat their father down. "Daddy," Mary said gently, "we don't want you to push that wheelbarrow anymore." Naomi added, "It's time you rest. You've carried us for so long, let us carry you now." Peter looked at them. His eyes, tired but shining, met theirs. He nodded. That chapter of his life, of struggle, of sweat, of being mocked by strangers, was over. Because honesty had rewritten their fate. And for the first time in a long time, tomorrow looked bright. It started like any other day at the restaurant. Busy, cheerful, full of satisfied customers and delicious aromas. But then, a woman walked in. Her eyes were tired, her clothes modest, her shoulders slightly hunched, like someone carrying too many invisible burdens. NSHE approached one of the junior staff timidly. "Please, I'm looking for work," she said. "Anything. Washing dishes, cleaning floors. I need something." NTHE worker, sensing something different about the woman, brought her to Mary and Naomi. She stood in front of them with her head bowed. "And I'll work hard. I won't complain. I just need a second chance." Mary and Naomi exchanged looks. There was something strangely familiar about this woman. But they couldn't place it. Their hearts, softened by years of struggle, opened. Despite not having a vacancy, they hired her to wash dishes. NHER name? Linda NSHE had no idea she was working for the very daughters she had abandoned. A few days later, Mr. Peters stopped by for lunch. He greeted everyone warmly and stepped into the kitchen, and froze. There she was, NTHE woman who had once left him shattered, standing in an apron, scrubbing plates like a stranger. NSHE hadn't seen him yet. He quietly stepped back and found his daughters. "My children," he said slowly. "Do you know who that woman is?" "No," Mary replied. "She came here begging for work." Peter's voice was quiet but firm. "That woman is your mother." NTHE words hit like thunder. "May." "What?" Naomi gasped. And Peter nodded. "After she left, I destroyed every picture of her. You've never seen her face, but that is her." Together, the three of them returned to the kitchen. When Linda looked up and saw Peter, her plate slipped from her hands. Her lips parted in shock. And Peter turned to her and spoke slowly. "The women who gave you this job, they are your daughters." Linda's knees buckled. Her hands trembled. "Nye, I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry, my daughters." Mary stepped back, her eyes cold with pain. "You have to leave," she said, pulling some cash from the drawer. "Take this, more than you've earned. Just go. I'm not your daughter. Mama Caro is my mother, not you." Naomi, fighting back tears, held Mary. "I know you're hurting. I am too. But please, don't send her away like this." Mary shook with emotion. "She left us. She didn't care if we lived or died." Linda sobbed. "I was young, foolish, selfish. Please, please forgive me." In THAT evening, the family sat together. The air was thick with history, hurt, and heavy silence. In BUT slowly, they chose forgiveness. Not because Linda deserved it, but because their hearts needed peace. In THE next day, they gave her a new role, matron of the restaurant. It was a gesture of hope, a chance to rebuild something broken. At first, it seemed like things were improving. Linda worked diligently. Staff respected her. Customers liked her soft-spoken demeanor. NBUT, the calm didn't last, and as slowly, Linda's old traits resurfaced. She snapped at workers, insulted juniors, and started questioning Mary and Naomi's decisions. One evening, she confronted them. "You treat that man, Peter, like a king. But me? I only get a salary. Do you even love me?" Mary stood tall. "Say one more bad word about our father, and I will show you the door," Linda scoffed. "You're just pretending. You don't want me here." NTHE next day, Mary and Naomi spoke to their father. "She's hurting the restaurant, and hurting us," Naomi said. And Peter listened and sighed. "She's still your mother, but sometimes love means setting boundaries." With heavy hearts, they told Linda she could no longer work there. Her reaction was explosive. "I knew it. That man poisoned your minds," she screamed, storming out. Still, they didn't abandon her. They opened a small shop near her home so she could manage herself. It wasn't revenge. It was mercy. Meanwhile, the restaurant flourished again. Business boomed. Joy returned. Then the girls? They expanded, opening branches across the country. And one day, they sat with their father. "Daddy," Mary said, "we're getting married soon. Same day, same church. But we don't want you to be alone." Naomi added, "We found someone. A kind woman. She works with us. She has 2 kids. And she loves you." Peter smiled. "I'll need time." NTWO days later, he met her. Madam Ruth. Gentle, honest. Strong NHE, agreed. NTHE wedding day arrived. A single celebration, 3 weddings, a family reborn. And standing proudly at the center of it all was Mama Caro, the true mother who never walked away. Because sometimes, family is not who gave you life, but who gave you love. He walked away to chase comfort. He stayed to fight for survival. Then in the end, he didn't just win. He raised 2 warriors. This was never just a story about hardship. It was about character, sacrifice, and the kind of love that doesn't ask for anything in return. It was about a father who gave everything, even when he had nothing. About daughters who chose honesty when no one was watching. About how integrity can open doors that money can't. Then when life came full circle, the woman who abandoned them had no idea. She was now working for the very children she once left behind. Forgiveness is not weakness. Sometimes, it's the loudest kind of strength. Then sometimes, letting go is more powerful than holding on to pain. So ask yourself, if your past came back, not to haunt you, but to need you, would you turn it away or offer it a second chance? If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to remember that even in the darkest moments, quiet love still shines. That sacrifice builds legacies. That kindness still matters. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you believe the world needs more stories that remind us of who we really are. Because true heroes don't wear capes. They just never stop showing up, even when the world stops believing in them.